You know that quiet ache that whispers, something has to change, but no matter how much you try, nothing really shifts? You wake up promising yourself, today I'll think differently, act differently, feel differently, and yet by afternoon, the same loops pull you back. It's like life is mirroring your old self back to you, even when you swear you've outgrown it. The truth is, most people don't fail because they don't want change. They fail because they're trying to change from the same frequency that created the problem. It's like shouting new commands into an old radio that's still tuned to static. You can scream all you want, but you'll only get noise. We've been taught that transformation takes time, discipline, endless repetition. But there's another way, one that works not by pushing, but by shifting your signal at its source. And when you understand how to do that, change becomes rapid, almost effortless, because you're not fighting the current anymore. You're aligning with a new one. There's a technique I want to show you. It's not about visualizing harder or affirming louder. It's about learning to tune your consciousness, to embody a frequency that reality cannot resist reflecting. Because the universe doesn't respond to effort, it responds to coherence. You felt moments of it before. Those rare flashes when everything clicks, when the thing you wanted finally unfolds, and it feels like life just synced with you. That's not luck. That's a glimpse of alignment. The technique I'm about to share isn't just theory. It's a method to make that alignment a living, repeatable experience. So, before we go into how it works, remember this. You don't need to change your entire life. You need to change the signal you're sending. And once that shifts, everything else has no choice but to follow. Think of yourself as a transmitter. Your thoughts, emotions, and body states are constantly sending out a frequency that reality mirrors back. Most people try to change their lives by adjusting the content of their thoughts, but not the quality of their signal. They switch words, not wavelength, and that's why they stay stuck. Let's use the radio metaphor. Imagine every possible version of your life, every outcome, every opportunity, every relationship, as stations already playing on different frequencies. You don't create them, you tune into them. When you're tuned to 98.1, you can't hear what's on 104.7, even if that's the song you want. The music isn't missing. It's just inaccessible until you change your dial. That's exactly how consciousness works. Every emotional state you live in, fear, gratitude, resentment, love, corresponds to a specific frequency. When you stay tuned to the vibration of fear or lack, you'll keep receiving versions of reality that confirm it. Not because life is punishing you, but because coherence demands consistency. Your external world matches your inner broadcast. The technique we're building toward starts with awareness of your current tuning. Most people aren't aware they're radiating contradiction. They say, I'm ready for abundance, but their body is still tense with survival. They affirm love, but they breathe like they're bracing for rejection. The body doesn't lie. It tells the field what you truly believe. So the first step is noticing, what frequency am I actually on right now? Forget your words. Listen to your tone. Feel your muscles. Check your breath. If your signal is cluttered with old static, fear, impatience, control, you're not broken. You're just tuned to an outdated channel. The good news? Retuning can happen fast. Because frequency is not fixed, it's fluid. The shift happens the moment your body feels safe enough to emit a new signal, and your attention stops reinforcing the old one. You don't need to push the river. You need to stop swimming upstream. When you learn to regulate your nervous system and sync your heart and mind into coherence, your body becomes the tuner, not your mind alone. That's when manifestation speeds up, because you're finally broadcasting a clear, undivided frequency. And this is the part almost everyone misses. They think change starts with effort, when in truth, it starts with signal clarity. But here's the twist. The reason clarity is so hard to hold isn't about focus or discipline. It's about one invisible myth almost everyone believes. The myth is that you must earn alignment, that only through hard work, endless affirmations, and grinding positivity can you finally deserve the new reality. That belief keeps you stuck because it assumes the universe is withholding something until you prove yourself ready. But energy doesn't bargain. It mirrors. Let me show you what I mean. A woman I once worked with, let's call her Maya, was under pressure. Bills were piling up, and her freelance clients had gone silent. Every morning she would sit down to manifest abundance, repeating her affirmations, visualizing checks arriving, smiling through the anxiety. But underneath the smile, her stomach was tight, her breath shallow, her body broadcasting panic. Her words said, I'm abundant, but her frequency screamed, I'm unsafe, and the field responded faithfully, not as punishment, but as resonance. More delays, more scarcity, more evidence that her inner signal hadn't changed. The irony was painful. The harder she tried to manifest, the more resistance she felt. One day, instead of another forced visualization, she tried something different. She stopped trying to think rich and focused on feeling relieved. She dropped her shoulders, exhaled the tension, and whispered, not as a demand, but as truth, "I'm safe right now." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't magic words. It was her body tuning, just a few hertz higher. Within days, a client who had disappeared for months paid her double the usual rate. The shift didn't come from forcing thoughts. It came from changing her frequency through embodiment. That's the Mythbuster. It's not about doing more. It's about broadcasting differently. You don't convince reality. You entrain it. When your internal state vibrates coherently, the field reorganizes to match you. Like a tuning fork setting another into resonance, the outer world begins to hum at your new frequency. And this is why so many people fail. They never realize the field doesn't speak words. It reads feeling tones. Every cell, every heartbeat, every micro movement is part of that message. When you think "I'm ready," but your body hums "I'm terrified," the universe hears the hum, not the sentence. So if your life feels like it's ignoring your intentions, it's not because you're unworthy. It's because your signal is split. The work isn't to yell louder into the void. It's to become the vibration that leaves no room for doubt. But that leads us to the real challenge. How do you regulate your inner signal when your nervous system has been wired for survival your whole life? This is the bridge most people miss. You can't transmit a new frequency from a system still coded for threat. The nervous system is the antenna of your manifestation. It determines which stations you're able to receive. If it's flooded with survival signals, no amount of spiritual theory can override that static. You can't broadcast abundance from a body that feels hunted. Your thoughts might want expansion, but your biology craves safety. Until those two align, your signal will stay fragmented. So before you try to manifest, you must first regulate. Because coherence doesn't come from effort, it comes from safety. Let's slow this down and feel it together for a moment. Close your eyes if you can. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for 2 seconds, and release slowly through your mouth. Again. But this time, imagine that with each exhale, static is leaving your field. Old frequencies, old fear, old control. Keep breathing until your body starts to soften. Now place your hand over your heart and whisper to yourself, "I'm safe in this moment." That simple statement isn't a trick. It's a tuning command. You're signaling to your body that it can finally drop its armor. And the moment your nervous system believes you, your electromagnetic field changes. Science shows that the heart generates the strongest rhythmic signal in the body, stronger than the brain. When your heart rhythm becomes smooth and coherent, it entrains the brain into harmony. That's when you become a clear transmitter. That's when your frequency stabilizes. Here's the secret. Coherence is contagious. Once you achieve it even for 30 seconds, the field around you begins to reorganize. Conversations shift. Timing aligns. People respond differently. You don't have to make things happen. You're literally magnetizing from a regulated state. So regulation isn't just about calming down. It's about tuning up. Every exhale recalibrates your channel. Every softened muscle frees bandwidth for new frequencies. When you learn to anchor safety as your baseline, your energy stops oscillating between hope and fear. It steadies, and with steadiness comes speed. Change accelerates because there's no interference. The fastest transformations don't come from intensity. They come from inner coherence. A body that trusts itself can hold higher frequencies without collapsing, but there's still one level deeper. Because even after you find moments of calm, another trap waits. The confusion between temporary state and lasting identity. Here's where most people get stuck. They experience a high vibration state for a moment and think they've changed forever. But a state is temporary. It's a glimpse. Identity is what keeps that frequency running even when you're not trying. The difference between those two is the difference between visiting a new reality and actually living there. Let's be honest. You've probably felt those surges before. You meditate, breathe, feel aligned, and for a few hours, everything flows. Then something happens, an email, a delay, a comment, and instantly, the old self hijacks the signal. You crash back into the version of you that doubts, worries, overanalyzes. It's not that your manifestation didn't work. It's that your identity tuner pulled you back to the familiar frequency. You see, your nervous system doesn't just hold emotions, it holds identity. It remembers who you've been. Every choice, reaction, and expectation is built on that identity's code. So if your old you is still running the transmitter, even a moment of high vibration will get overwritten. The signal can't stay steady if the self sending it hasn't upgraded. Here's the key distinction. A state says, I feel abundant right now. An identity says, I am the one who naturally attracts abundance. One fades when conditions change, the other stabilizes reality itself. Because reality doesn't rearrange around passing moods, it aligns to your consistent broadcast. That's why rapid change can only happen when you stop trying to feel different and start embodying the version of you who already is. It's not pretending, it's rehearsing coherence until it becomes memory. When you embody a new identity, your field locks onto a new frequency, and once it locks, the external must catch up. So the question becomes, how do you step into an identity that your body doesn't yet recognize? How do you convince your system to believe in a version of you it hasn't lived yet? Because that's the real art, bridging from the known self to the next self, without collapsing back into the old frequency. And to do that, we need to explore something extraordinary, the link between identity and timelines, the way each version of you already exists on a different frequency band, waiting for you to tune in. Every possible version of you already exists, each one broadcasting from a different frequency, like parallel stations on the same radio. There's the version still doubting, still hustling, still reacting. And there's another one, peaceful, magnetic, effortlessly in sync with what it desires. You don't create that version, you tune into it. Every identity is a signal. Every signal is a timeline. The shift isn't about forcing yourself to be that future you. It's about calibrating your frequency until that identity feels natural. Because when your energy matches a timeline, reality reorganizes to confirm it. You start meeting people who act like they've known this version of you all along. Opportunities that used to feel impossible now arrive as if they were waiting. Nothing about the outer world changed first. You did. Let me give you a picture of this in action. Ethan was a musician who kept sabotaging his career. He told me, I know I'm talented, but every time something big happens, I freeze. He'd turn down shows, delay releases, and justify it as not the right time. In truth, his identity was still tuned to trying, not being. He was playing the frequency of the almost successful man. So, we did one exercise. For a week, he stopped identifying as someone becoming successful. Instead, he started moving as someone who already performs at that level. That didn't mean pretending or arrogance. It meant attuning his body to that station. He walked differently. He practiced like a professional, not a dreamer. He breathed as if the stage was already his. By the end of that week, a festival organizer, someone who'd ignored him for months, suddenly called to book him. Same city, same conditions, different signal. He didn't attract it by begging the universe. He matched the identity that belonged to that timeline. Here's what that reveals. Timelines don't respond to desire. They respond to resonance. Every time you act, feel, and breathe like your next self, you're tuning the dial toward that frequency. Every doubt pulls you back to an old station, but every embodied choice locks you closer to the new one. This is how rapid transformation happens. It's not about rewriting the past, but inhabiting a frequency where the past no longer applies. So now that you know your identity is the tuner and your timeline is the broadcast, how do you actually rehearse this in daily life so your signal doesn't wobble when old patterns resurface? Once you understand that identity is a frequency, the next step is rehearsal, not pretending, but training your system to hold the signal of your next timeline until it becomes the default broadcast. Just like a musician practices scales to build muscle memory, you rehearse coherence to build energetic memory. Here's how. Tool 1. Bridge statements. When your old identity starts whispering its usual doubts, this is too hard. It never works for me. Don't fight the voice. Fighting it keeps you tuned to it. Instead, bridge it. Use gentle transitional phrases that move your signal without breaking it. For example, I'm learning to feel safe in expansion. I'm open to this getting easier. I'm becoming the kind of person who trusts timing. These phrases create micro adjustments. They keep your body from rejecting the new frequency by easing it into alignment rather than forcing it. Tool 2. Somatic anchors. Pick a single physical gesture. Pressing your hand to your chest, rolling your shoulders back, steadying your breath, that signals to your body, this is my new station. Each time you do it, pair it with a coherent emotion like calm, gratitude, or certainty. Over time, the gesture becomes a switch. The moment you touch that anchor, your nervous system remembers the frequency. Tool 3. Sensory rehearsal. Close your eyes and imagine yourself living from the new identity, but focus less on seeing and more on feeling. How does your body move when it's already that version? How do you breathe? What subtle emotions live there? Tune to that texture. Let your muscles memorize it. Tool 4. Timeline check-ins. Several times a day, pause and ask, which station am I on right now? Not in judgment, but curiosity. If you catch yourself tuned to worry or proving, breathe, anchor, bridge, and shift. You're not correcting yourself. You're retuning your signal. These tools are not rituals. They're retraining your broadcast so it can hold coherence under pressure. The more you rehearse embodiment, the faster your outer reality synchronizes. And there's one thing I've noticed about people who truly master this. Their lives start moving faster, but they look calmer. Because when your field stabilizes, life stops testing and starts responding. Have you noticed that moment when you finally stop gripping and what you wanted just shows up on its own? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. Now, even with all these tools, there are still traps. Subtle ones that can pull you right back into static. Urgency, split signals, and the illusion of control. Even when you understand the mechanics of frequency, 3 invisible traps can quietly drag you back into the old broadcast. Urgency, split signals, and over-control. Each one scrambles coherence in its own way, and unless you learn to spot them, they'll keep distorting your transmission no matter how many tools you use. The first trap is urgency. It's that inner rush that whispers, I need this to happen now. On the surface, urgency looks like focus, but underneath it's fear disguised as movement. When you operate from urgency, your body emits the vibration of lack of time, lack of safety, lack of trust. The field mirrors that immediately, delays, obstacles, almost. The antidote is paradoxical. Slow down to accelerate. When you breathe slower, walk slower, speak slower, your field signals, there is no threat. And from that stillness, momentum returns. The universe moves faster when you stop rushing it. The second trap is split signals. This happens when your words and your energy contradict each other. You might be affirming abundance while checking your bank app with dread, or saying, I'm open to love, while bracing for rejection. The signal becomes incoherent, like trying to tune 2 stations at once. Nothing comes through clearly. The solution isn't to suppress the fear, but to integrate it. Speak to it directly. You're safe. I'm not abandoning you. That self-dialogue unifies your frequency. You're not banishing your old self. You're harmonizing it into the new signal. The third trap is over-control. This is the mind's favorite disguise for fear. You start micromanaging outcomes, refreshing inboxes, checking for signs. Every act of control sends a message of distrust. Remember, the field doesn't need managing. It needs coherence. You can't dominate a frequency into alignment. You can only stabilize yourself into it. Release the need to control, and the energy you were using to monitor outcomes becomes available for creation. When you neutralize these traps, something remarkable happens. Your system starts trusting itself. You no longer need to constantly hold the vibe because your baseline frequency has become one of safety and receptivity. That's when manifestation feels effortless. Not because nothing challenges you, but because the static stops controlling your tuner. And that steadiness, that grounded ease, is what allows you to carry coherence into everything. Conversations, daily habits, movement, even silence. Because coherence that only exists on the meditation mat isn't coherence, it's escapism. So how do you anchor this new frequency through the simple, ordinary moments of your day, so life itself becomes the practice? This is where the real shift happens. Not in meditation, not during affirmations, but in the micro moments no one sees. Because your frequency isn't built in the grand gestures. It's shaped by what you do between them. The way you breathe while making coffee. The tone you use when answering a message. The thoughts that fill the silence before sleep. Each is a signal check, each a chance to anchor the new identity into the ordinary rhythm of life. Let's make this real. You're walking down the street and a stranger brushes past you without a word. The old frequency interprets it as rejection. They're rude. People are careless. The new frequency pauses, exhales, and stays open. It feels the event, but doesn't assign meaning. That neutrality is power. It tells the field, I decide what this moment means. The vibration of sovereignty replaces the vibration of reaction. Or imagine scrolling through social media and seeing someone living the life you want, traveling, glowing, winning. The lower timeline pulls at you. Comparison, tension, contraction. But coherence means you notice the tension and choose not to collapse. You breathe into the envy, feel it dissolve, and shift to resonance. That's proof it exists in my field too. That simple pivot turns jealousy into calibration. You're not watching from outside the frequency, you're tuning toward it. Even eating can become frequency practice. When you eat in guilt or rush, your body hears scarcity. When you eat with presence, gratitude, and slow chewing, your system receives abundance as a sensory experience. Every act becomes a broadcast of your chosen identity. The same applies to silence, waiting for a text, a call, an answer. Most people fill that space with mental noise, stories of rejection, fear of being forgotten, but silence is one of the most potent tuning grounds. It's where your old frequency tries to reassert itself. If you can stay coherent there, breathing, anchored, certain even without evidence, you've already changed timelines. Because the version of you who doesn't chase reassurance exists on a higher station. You meet them in the quiet. When you start carrying coherence into the mundane, your field becomes unbreakable. Life no longer jerks your signal around. You set the tone and the world adjusts. You stop living in reaction and start living in broadcast. And once you can maintain that broadcast in daily life, you're ready for something far bigger. Because the same mechanism that reshapes your day can also rewire your relationships, your health, your purpose, and even your sense of what's possible. Once coherence becomes your baseline, your reality starts expanding across every domain: relationships, creativity, health, purpose. Because frequency never stays contained, it radiates. And the version of you that learned to stay tuned through silence and daily stillness is now capable of broadcasting stability into the wider field of life. Let's start with relationships. When you embody coherence, you stop interacting from need and start relating from wholeness. People feel that. You become the calm in the conversation instead of the storm. Imagine you're about to have a difficult talk with someone you love. The old you would enter tense, defensive, already preparing your counterpoints. The tuned you breathes before speaking. You drop your shoulders, open your chest, and speak from frequency, not fear. You're not trying to win. You're resonating truth. And suddenly, the other person's energy softens too, because coherence regulates coherence. You've shifted the entire field of the conversation. Now imagine creativity. Before, you'd chase inspiration, scrolling, comparing, doubting. But when your body is aligned, ideas start flowing without force. You become a receiver instead of a seeker. It's like opening a window that had been painted shut. The air rushes in because it finally can. You write, design, perform, not to prove something, but to express the frequency already humming through you. That's when art becomes effortless magnetism. Let's talk about health. When your nervous system stays regulated, your cells follow suit. Your heart rhythm steadies, digestion improves, immunity strengthens. The body listens to every signal the mind sends, and now it's finally hearing harmony instead of static. You stop treating health as a battle and start treating it as frequency hygiene. Movement becomes tuning. Rest becomes recalibration. Food becomes fuel for coherence. And then there's purpose. The higher your vibration stabilizes, the clearer your path becomes. Not because someone hands it to you, but because your intuition stops being drowned out by noise. The right ideas, invitations, and chances appear. Not as luck, but as resonance. Life starts to mirror your inner station, line by line, scene by scene. To ground this, picture one final micro scenario. You're in a job interview. The stakes are high. You feel the tension rising, the urge to impress. The old signal would spiral, overthinking, rushing, proving. But you take one deep, coherent breath. You feel your feet, your pulse, your presence. And suddenly you're not performing, you're transmitting. The interviewer feels it. Your words land. The field adjusts. And what happens next isn't coincidence. It's coherence meeting opportunity. This expansion is real, but it's not just personal. Because as your broadcast grows stronger, it begins to influence something far larger than your individual life, the collective frequency that connects us all. There's a moment in this process when you realize you were never creating alone. You were always co-transmitting with something vaster. The same field that shapes galaxies listens to your frequency, not as a judge, but as a collaborator. What you call manifestation is simply the language of resonance between your individual signal and the greater intelligence that holds it all together. When you start living from coherence, this isn't philosophy anymore. It becomes visceral. You feel it in your bones. Synchronicities appear like punctuation marks in a conversation you didn't know you were having. A song lyric speaks your exact thought. Someone calls at the precise moment you think of them. The timing is too elegant to be random. It's the universe nodding back, "I hear you." But here's the paradox that cracks everything open. The more you surrender control, the stronger your creative power becomes. Because true power doesn't come from manipulating outcomes. It comes from trusting the intelligence that already knows the path. Surrender isn't weakness. It's resonance without resistance. When you let go, you stop distorting the field with your anxiety, and alignment moves faster than your logic ever could. Think of it like this. The universe is an orchestra of frequencies, and you are both instrument and musician. When you try to force your solo, you clash with the rhythm. When you relax and listen, you naturally fall back into harmony. That's when life starts composing with you. Events, people, timing, all aligning as if guided by an unseen conductor. This is also where humility returns. You realize manifestation was never about getting everything you want, but about remembering you were always part of the same living frequency that creates suns and cells. You stop chasing signs and start being one. Your presence becomes a transmitter of calm, clarity, and quiet confidence. People don't understand why they feel lighter around you. They just do. Because your signal reminds their systems what coherence feels like. And maybe the most liberating truth of all, nothing you desire is truly outside you. Every potential already exists within the field, waiting for your signal to stabilize. You don't need to force, fix, or plead. You simply tune and allow the infinite intelligence to do what it's been doing since the beginning. Mirror you perfectly. You're not becoming powerful. You're remembering you already were. And now, the only step left is to integrate everything you've learned into one living, breathing practice. A final shift that seals this frequency into your reality. Everything we've explored leads to this simple truth. Your life changes the instant your signal does. You don't have to fix 10 years of patterns, rewrite your past, or fight your mind into silence. You only have to tune, because the field isn't keeping score. It's listening. Imagine standing before an old radio again. For years, you've been twisting the dial, searching for clarity, catching fragments of music between bursts of static. But now, your hand steadies, your breath slows. You realize the static was never proof of failure. It was feedback, guiding you closer to alignment. You turn the knob a fraction, and suddenly, the song comes through crystal clear. You're not straining anymore. You're receiving. That's the essence of this technique. Every breath, every emotion, every thought is a frequency adjustment. Each time you drop control and choose coherence, you're sending a new signal into the field. A signal so precise that reality can't help but match it. And the more consistently you broadcast from safety, from embodiment, from truth, the faster your timeline rearranges. Change doesn't have to take years. It happens at the speed of resonance, because life mirrors not your effort, but your frequency. The moment you hold that signal without wobbling, when you stop searching and start being, the universe tunes with you. So, if you've been waiting for the moment to turn the dial for real, this is it. Not later. Not when things calm down. Now. Take a breath, feel your heart's rhythm, and tune to the frequency of the version of you who's already living the life you came here for. Because transformation was never about becoming someone new. It's about remembering the music that's been playing underneath the static all along, and finally letting yourself hear it.